Welcome back to the Serving Kult Podcast, the place where you can explore culture, chaos, and in this month's episode, VJ and photography. Throughout this episode, we will be speaking to VJ artists and photographers on what they do, how it all works, and also some advice for those who are aspiring visual artists. Expect conversations about VJ and what it entails, both in virtual reality and the physical realm, photographing raves and what to look for, plus everything in between. So, keep listening to learn more about visuals and photography with me, Anya, and the lovely contributors of this episode. Hello.
Hi.
It's lovely to meet you and have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell everybody who is watching or listening who you are and kind of where you're based and a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Sarah Ginn. I'm a kind of electronic music photographer. I've been an electronic music photographer since 2007, 2006. And I did loads of my work at Fabric in London. And I've also worked with lots of record labels and events companies and things within electronic music over the last 15 years. I used to be in London, but about 7 years ago, I moved to Bristol. But no regrets on that, because Bristol's amazing.
So do you want to give a bit of context for people who maybe haven't already seen the episode with you in, about who you are and where you're based?
Yeah, so my name is Zaron. I am based in the virtual world and in the UK in Sheffield. We do events in Sheffield as Interworld Media, which is like a variety of a lot of different things. I love variety more than any genre as a singular thing. I do all my work as like a VJ. And like a lighting designer, so I'll go to event spaces or someone else's event, and I'll kind of project big flashy colours and lots of confusing images to baffle and wonder the audience.
Yeah, I'm Samantha. I'm a photographer and I'm based in Manchester. I'm from Manchester as well, so it's nice to be based in your hometown.
Could you give us some more context to about you and your photography and about kind of you and your creative everything?
Yeah, so I class myself as a music and portrait photographer. Everything kind of revolves around music. So the portraits that I do are usually people in music, so maybe DJs, bands and whatnot. And then the music and live stuff I tend to do is like club stuff. That's the majority, clubs, raves. But I also do a bit of band stuff here and there, so festivals like Slam Dunk.
Hello, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody on the podcast?
Hi, I am Xenon Chameleon. I am a live coding musician, DJ, producer, based out of Maryland.
I thought a lot of you, like myself, may be unsure what live coding and VJ is, so I asked Zaron and Xenon Chameleon to give you a bit more of an idea. For context, DAW is a digital audio workstation, for example, like Logic or Pro Tools. For a lot of people who are listening to this podcast and watching this podcast, they will have no idea what live coding is at all. So could you give us a little bit of context, both of you, if you want to kind of collab on an answer to what live coding entails?
I'd say the best sentence I've heard to describe it, and I'm trying to remember who it was from, but basically described as taking the hood off your DAW. Yeah. So the idea is that instead of having this sort of timeline and have things represented like that, you make music by sending commands to synthesizers, samplers, sequencers, and you change those commands in real time to affect the music. I would compare it to like live modular and live hardware performances, but the difference is that everything is inside the computer, and because you have the flexibility of software, you're able to show all the commands that are happening and literally project them around the room. And so the audience, and so a big part of Algo Rave is showing your screen and literally showing the audience what's happening
The
as it's
process.
happening. Yeah.
And then how does it work in the physical realm then, for people who kind of don't know anything about VJ? How does that kind of manifest itself in a physical kind of event context?
So if you're a VJ, there are a variety of ways that you can kind of go about doing it. You can work with lots of clips. So you'll show up to a venue, they'll have a projector or a screen of some sort. You plug your computer or laptop in, and then you kind of like press buttons in time with the music. That is like the basic form of VJing. Or you have like generative stuff that you make there, and it's like a responsive thing, and you'll get like an audio feed from the DJ, which will be driving. It'll be the audio feed from the DJ will be driving the effects, and you can define like the low end is going to be changing like the wobbliness of the screen, and the high end is going to be affecting like the distortion on the screen. It really is. What I like about it is that I've never met two VJs that have the same process. Everyone has a different way of going about it, and I think that's why I like it so much. Is that it's such an individual
Expression.
practice. Yeah, it's a really expression, kind of like an abstract expressionism kind of like form of like performance.
And so how does VJ work? I have to know, in the kind of virtual realm, like how do you go to a virtual event? How does all of that work?
Very similar to VJing in a physical event. I'll have to travel there and get to know like a new system that they have. They'll have like a control system that is not dissimilar from like a MIDI controller, or
Yeah.
they will have a MIDI controller, and so I'll know how to press the buttons, and everything will have like it's correctly labeled. Sometimes it's kind of like it kind of mimics physical systems. Sometimes it doesn't and tries to do something completely else. And it will be just like a large grid of buttons. All the buttons will be spawning, tentacles in the sky. Or sometimes there will be a grid of like a dial, and the dial will control all the colors in the place. One of my favorite effects that I get to do is I deliver different colors to your eyes. So in the left eye, we'll have all the green in the venue. In the right eye, we'll have all like the red in the venue. And so it splits it up like that into like a stereoscopic thing, and it's really hard to imagine that without being able to physically experience it. And the first time I did that, I ripped my headset off because I thought my brain was going to like cook itself, because it's just such a bizarre feeling. You can feel like your visual cortex like heating up as you're like seeing this
God.
like split image of colors. And again, there'd be no way to deliver that in a physical show.
So do you want to give a bit more context to maybe where you get some inspiration from for your VJ works?
So I have something called synesthesia. The particular type of synesthesia I have is called chromesthesia, which means that when I hear colors and so when I hear music, I kind of like have an involuntary reaction in my mind's eye, which kind of conjures up colors and shapes and like forms and stuff. And that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from, is just trying to illustrate my kind of like ridiculous take on sounds and things. But then I also use a lot of, I like to do a lot of weird stuff with camera tricks and kind of confusing people. I use a lot of like webcams in my performance to get a lot of like video feedback, or I'll take like something I've been doing recently is just pure brain rot visuals. So just taking like crappy Instagram content of just like terrible reels, and like I was at a festival recently, and I just flashed up like the Family Guy clips, funny Family Guy clips. People were coming over being like, "This is great, that's amazing, wow, how do you do this?" And I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Like it's just like what's that game that's like like Temple Run sort of stuff.
Fair.
And people love it. They go crazy for it. I don't understand it. Like they absolutely love it. It's great. And then so I'm also really interested in kind of like biological data driven stuff. So I'll have like some sensors attached to my head and my hands, and they'll be detecting my biological state. and that will be sending MIDI notes to Resolume, which is what's driving a lot of like the visual effects and stuff is all being defined. The parameters of the effects are all being defined by my physiology.
Oh my God. But how do you come up with that? Like what in your, not to give a, I guess a biological pun, but like what in your brain came up with the idea to like choose to use those mediums?
So we're all outputting all of that information all the time. Right now we're both like, emitting all this information, and I just decided to I don't want to physically press buttons with my hands because my brain is just imagining me pressing the buttons. I'm just bypassing my input, and just because if my brain's already doing it, why do my hands have to do it? My brain's already imagining it. I've already got all these colors and shapes in my head. All I need to do is just like get the bandwidth out. And the best way to do that was to, I'm not sure.
Bypass physical.
Yeah, I'm not sure that might be the best way to do it, but it's how I like to do it.
Well, it seems to work from everything I've ever seen. It seems to do really well. So we won't argue with it. Just let it happen.
That's I'm really excited because I'm doing a performance for No Bounds Festival in a couple of months, and all I'm going to do is just go to sleep, and that's the performance. And then whilst I'm asleep, my brain and my body are going to be emitting all these signals, and that's going to be turned into music and colors and sounds and stuff. So I just show up to the festival and have a nap. And that's the show.
So iconic.
It's pretty. I love to sleep. I do a lot of like lucid dreaming stuff as well. So that's like a large part of inspiration for me. Is like
you can lucid dream.
Oh yeah, I had a crazy one on when I was trying to wake up to come to this interview. Actually, like I knew I had to be somewhere in my dream, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there. So the whole dream was about like trying to get to these different places and like being like interrupted by different things and stuff. But I knew I had to get somewhere. So it was really confusing, and I use my dream journal for inspiration about like different types of images and stuff to use for shows.
Could you give us some more context to your photography? So I mean, you mentioned you do kind of club night dance music photography, but obviously there's only so much music photography you can pay for. So what kind of as an overview of the kind of stuff you take pictures of, what kind of stuff?
So I just do events and also shoot in the dark. So people tend to hire me for any kinds of events. So you're looking at like corporate events or private parties. For a long time I had a day job. I left that about 2.5 years ago. So I've always kind of flitted back into that. But it's just generally low light events, no flash. That's what I do. And then also projections, taking pictures of projections onto buildings and stuff. So once you do the kind of electronic music, I think it gives you a lot of skills in lots of different areas of photography, which people don't really realise they have. So you just expand it out to all events. There's so many of them, I wouldn't be a wedding photographer though, because that's a completely different discipline.
Oh my God, I wouldn't want to be a wedding photographer, because if you miss the moment, it's gone.
I just don't enjoy it. And like, there's some amazing wedding photographers out there, but I found that I have a lot of choice work-wise. Once I've identified the right markets, then I'm good.
And as well, it's probably the same in music, but when it comes to like a wedding, if you miss a moment, you miss the moment. Like, that's it, done. They're not going to like exchange rings again if you miss the picture. Do you know what I mean?
That's the pressure. Like,
I'm not okay with that. At least with the gig, I know that they're probably going to do the same movement on stage a few times. Do you know what I mean? Or
exactly, like
the same lights. You're going to get a laser again.
Yeah, you're going to get that chance. Like, I think you get better at it as a music photographer. I'm sure you find the same over time. You get to guess when those moments come in.
Yeah.
But on the whole, you probably get more than one chance.
Where do you get your inspirations from for live coding?
I kind of do a mix of genres, but generally it kind of spans from techno to footwork to IDM to hardcore and breakcore as well.
Moving on from VJ and live coding, I wanted to ask Sarah and Sam more about their experiences as club and rave scene photographers. I mean, you've kind of gone into it a little bit, but how do you find capturing club and rave scene content?
I just find it a lot of fun. It's kind of almost like a challenge, basically, because it's a fairly difficult environment. And when you talk to other photographers, it's interesting. They always freak about who's going to break their kit and what about the smoke? And like they just freak out about it, right? There's no light. So I like it because creatively you have to think on your feet quite a lot about what kind of pictures you can do and what effects they will do. So luckily, when I first started at Fabric, they gave me no briefs. It was a voluntary role for a long time because there was no social media. So I was just like, hey, I just want to come and take some pictures. Managed to get in at the right time because they were very funny about pictures. Like they would not let anyone into Fabric for pictures, even people who wanted to do adverts and stuff in there. Like they were
No
like,
way. So it was like, I mean, when you went in, if you had a camera, they'd be like, you can't bring it in, even if it was just like a personal one.
No, they were very locked down. And then I shot on film for the first year because I didn't have a digital camera. And luckily I worked in a photo lab, so I could just steal the film and do it that way.
Nice one.
But yeah, so I experimented a lot because Fabric were like, well, just give us what you've got kind of thing. And so I didn't have that pressure of always delivering a certain thing for them. And what was really nice recently is they've just got a book out called Fabric 25, which is just, it's literally come out in the last few weeks, and it's like the whole history of the club, the 25 years they've been open. And Cameron was like, you always took the pictures we wanted Fabric to look like, and I was just so chuffed when he said that, because it's
That
like,
is such a nice compliment.
because they never even told me what to do. So in the fact that they gave me all this freedom, I kind of formed this style really of like what that club came across as. And then for him to say that was just really nice. And people do say that like they do remember my work from Fabric. Like it was quite influential. Like I didn't realise at the time, you know,
Whoa.
like quite a few years down the line, people
You were
like,
actually kind of really trailblazing and you didn't know because you had no brief and you were just doing it your own way.
No, I was just playing. Like I remember once I use Nick's plugin. I love it. Right. And I got the retro plugin, and I just played around with like what all the retro plugin could do. And then because it was a new program, I just got it. Right. And then I sent them over to Fabric, and like the feedback from those pictures, people were just like, what? Like, you know.
How have you done that?
Yeah. So I was very lucky because I hit the photography at the point where you would only really get paid for press shoots and magazines, because that was the tail end of magazines. And it was only kind of like probably a good 6 or 7 years into my career, like proper career where I was doing it full time, that actually people started getting paid for club photos, like properly, because they were...
That's crazy.
Yeah. So for all the people who started right at the very beginning did not get nothing, you know, only when we worked for brands. Like, so I did a lot of stuff for Red Bull at the start. That's where I got my money. But for me actually getting paid by the promoters and the clubs, no, it just was unheard of, because they didn't need the photos. They were just like, it's only when they started to use them to sell the events that they started having them.
But I guess in the original way of thinking about it, there probably was like posters out, and then they probably just kind of use a generic background. They probably wouldn't think, oh, let's put someone's photography on it. There was probably no market for it at the time.
No,
and obviously social media's opened that up massively.
Yeah, it's given a lot of work to photographers. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, because like so many people want to do it now because there is some kind of money there. There's more money than there was, which is nothing. Right.
True.
But there isn't a lot because there's so many people that want to do it. So you kind of like, you've got to mix it up with other stuff. But yeah, I think I was just very lucky at the start of Fabric, and they opened up loads of doors. And so, and then because I'd experimented a lot, then I just carried on experimenting with every single client that I got.
How do you yourself find capturing like your club rave scene content? Like, how is it for you as a photographer?
I mean, it changes from gig to gig, really. I feel like it's difficult to kind of inject my style into raves when they're more commercial. So like people want the big hero shots with like the lasers and the CO2 and confetti and everything, and like they're fun to capture, but like it's difficult to then inject like a grungier style into it, which is what I like really, which is why I love shooting warehouse projects so much, because they just give you like full creative freedom, and they love the grungy, grainy, underground look. Like their aesthetic is just everything. It's so good.
You know how you're saying like what inspires me, or like I think one of the questions is what inspires me in club photography. It's not actually club photography per se or looking at other people's photos. It's processes. So like I was saying, I've started to do a lot of alternative processes that are really analog.
Oh, so your inspiration comes from what, like the analog part of it, or is it more the process of getting there?
Yeah, so I'll look back at all the different types of photography that's happened over the past 100 and something years, right? And then there's all sorts of different, and a lot of them you can replicate on your computer, okay? But there's some you can't, or you can do a kind of half thing. And then there's certain films that I might use, like I've got some Lomo purple film, which makes all the it makes all the green go purple.
Very satisfying.
Yeah, I know, right?
Especially take it to a festival.
Well, I like. Have you heard of Richard Moss?
No. So
I think it's Richard Moss. He's a concept documentary photographer, right? So this is where I got my new visual concept music photography thing from. Was from him. So he'll go and do like a documentary thing. So his famous one is he went out to the Congo and he took pictures of all the soldiers and stuff out there, and then he had them in the jungle, and he did it with infrared film, and that infrared film that he used made all the jungle go pink. So it was a juxtaposition of like all these like soldiers. The book is available. It's really expensive, so I haven't got it.
You can look online though.
You can look online, yeah. Richard Moss, and so like him, I'm just trying out all these different films and like cyanotypes and tinting stuff with tea and like all of this kind of stuff, because film has come back, as you know.
Is that where your passion for photography came from then? Is it kind of like going to these events?
Yeah, because I started shooting photography when I was going to all these events, and I kind of just was photographing my friends and like taking my camera with me and
taking your like.
No, it wasn't like.
I was gonna say, because that's like, I swear there's rules against that. Like you can't take big DSLRs and stuff in.
You can. No, it definitely wasn't DSLR. It was like a compact, like one lens kind of camera.
Okay.
With the flash on top of the camera, like yeah, it was nothing fancy.
DIY.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I started off doing that and taking photos of my friends. I actually started off doing it at house parties where I would take my camera and just take photos of all my friends. And then I'd add them to, do you remember when Facebook groups, Facebook events?
Yeah.
And then I'd just add them to there and everyone would be like, oh my God, woo. Like, I forgot about this one. Yeah.
Back to VJ now. I wanted to ask Zaron how they prepare for a VJ performance. What steps do you take when preparing for a VJ performance? Like, do you have a bank of things that you will go for? I know you've obviously the synesthesia thing is kind of like a bank in your brain. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Yeah, so I'll have before I go to a DJ set, I'll listen to the DJ and find out what kind of stuff they're going to be playing. I'll look at the venue and see what kind of venue it is, what kind of stuff would work well in that venue. And then I will sit and listen to this performer over and over and over again and just make a bunch of stuff in VR, and then kind of like film them in VR and then kind of like work them into usable chunks of data. And that can either be banks of effects that I like that work well together that I can then manipulate with like a dial or something, or I will make a bunch of clips that work really well together. Yesterday I was performing. I was getting ready for a performance at Sight Gallery in Sheffield, which is like a chiptune performer called Harley Likes Music. And I had made his album art into like a giant maze, and I was filming myself running around this maze that I'd made out of his album art. So it really is different completely every time, and that's what's so enjoyable about it is I get to be the ultimate variety act.
And as well, I guess a lot of people will be questioning with the fact that you have to do so much preparation. And I'm aware of it.
Oh, you don't have to do this preparation. That's entirely what I like doing. So I was really struggling to make that maze because I was following loads of Blender tutorials. I don't know how to use Blender. I was following loads of Blender tutorials, and it just wasn't fun. So I decided to remake it as a whole, and out of these tiny little sticks. And I was placing all these things. You don't have to do. It took so long, yeah, but it was fun, and that's the most important part. It was really, really fun. And if you don't have fun, what's the point? Why are you doing it? I'm so interested because it sounds like you've had like almost the opposite, but also so similar to me, because I started VJing weekly in doing physical shows. And then that
you went to VR.
again. So as you were saying, like it allowed me to like having like a regular output like that allowed me to like hone the VJing stuff, and that's when I started doing the VR stuff. So it's so interesting that you had like almost kind of like the opposite, but like parallel experience to me.
Like, is there a specific genre of music that you like to kind of do photography for?
Within the electronic music?
Any. I mean, you can give me an electronic and then a non-electronic as well if you want.
Yeah, okay. Well, drum and bass is where it all started for me. But my taste, I will always love photographing drum and bass, but my taste has kind of gone more to like UK garage and like hard house and speed garage, and it's all what's like kind of current at the moment. And I feel like genres of music are all kind of combining. So like people like Interplanetary Criminal and Malugi, who is, I don't even know how to describe his genre, but it's like kind of trancey, and like it's all like just coming into one, and like all these artists are like crossing over. And there's a really cool show which I'm not photographing. It's a Warehouse Project one, but I'm hopefully going. It's the Over Mono show. I don't know if you've seen it.
I was going to say I know Over Mono. I think I've seen something to do with that.
Yeah, I mean the lineup is insane, and it sold out at pre-sale as well.
Oh my God.
Like, it didn't even get to general sale. But that is like, it's got some garage artists on there, and then obviously Over Mono, and it's just a really perfect like mashup of electronic music, and I think it'd be amazing.
So are you photographing?
I'm not. No,
I was going to say.
I'm hopefully going to be going to it.
Okay, cool.
Crossed.
So would that be like your dream kind of lineup to photograph with like a variety of different artists on? Yeah,
I'd say so. And then the Warehouse Projects also have a really cool Loyal Kana show, which has like more R&B soul stuff, which takes me to the other personality.
This is probably going to be quite a hard question for yourself, but do you have a favourite style of music to create visuals for?
Yes. So for our last event, we had an artist called Tiger Blue, who does kind of like live coding stuff. Super nice. I think he's Birmingham based at the moment. And he did this set that was really like erratic and super kind of like out there, and it didn't like sit still for one thing. Again, it was a variety kind of like thing. It wasn't just like dance music or like ambient music. It was very like all over the show, and that's what I like the most is kind of erratic stuff and things going wrong all the time, and like because it gives me such a the ability to do the same and to interpret it in interesting ways and not just be like I've seen so many DJs perform, being like a lighting engineer for so many years. I've seen so many performances, and I get so bored of just one genre for a whole hour or something. After 50 minutes, I'm done. I want to listen to something else. And if it's a DJ that is just playing the same stuff over and over again, it's just so like frustrating and disheartening as like a visual performer, because then I don't get like different stuff come up. It's always just like the same things. So I do have a favorite genre, and it's all of them in a very short time frame.
Anybody who kind of switches up literally all the time.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I like, and maybe that's just a symptom of some sort of something that hasn't been diagnosed yet. But that's definitely the best way to do it.
Finally, back to photography, where I discuss with Sarah and Sam a few topics related to their careers and also career development. What do you think is most important to you when it comes to photographing an event? Like, what aspect of it to you is like, I need to capture this particular part of it? It's so like integral.
It's really interesting, that question, because at first I wanted to capture the DJs, right? And I was all about the DJs and the artists and making them look a certain way. And as I've gone through, I decided that the audience are much better. Well, there's more life in
There's a lot going on, yeah.
And so over the years, although I will capture DJs, right, and I'm still get quite excited about how there's only a certain amount of angles you can do with some guy on deck.
True.
Sorry, right.
It's not a lie.
No, so I'm like, okay, so, and then as time has gone on, I've just started to move the camera away from the DJ to the crowd. And I think that started when I got a really long lens. I got a 70-200, and like some of the pictures I got in the crowd with that lens, because people can be like 10 foot away and you can get that moment. And I got obsessed with getting
We're just finding.
Yeah, like that when someone's in the moment. And I'm so obsessed with that bit, I call it the feedback loop. And I wrote an essay on it because basically music is like fuel. It's like any kind of energy. It's like electricity. But what it does is it creates these moments within people called a feedback loop, where they're like lost in the moment. They're like, wow, everything's amazing. Right. But then they remember those the next day because they've had such a good time, whatever. So I'm a bit obsessed with capturing those. But then what happens is later on down the line, that person will make something because they get inspired by that moment. They think about it. They go, oh, that was so cool. You know, I want to do this. And so I actually wrote a whole essay about those moments. So now I'm just trying to find them as a photographer.
Just keep going and just
and
like...
they're more like out audience face, you know, than anything else.
And like when you... Well, I mean, I understand what I totally get what you're saying, but for other people trying to visualize that, what kind of moments do you look for? Like, what specific things? Is it the fact that, you know, it's a moment between two people? Is it a moment just between someone like on their own in a dance floor? Do you know what?
Oh, all of them.
Anything.
The magic moment you want really is when the whole audience connects to the artist and it becomes like this whole energy loop, right? And that's when you get your wide angle shot and you get that moment, you know, and everything all clicks together. But there's so many little moments, like you said, within it, especially in something like a club, because you've got someone who's probably lost all their friends and they're dancing and they're just having a thing. And then you can just get a picture of them like with their face, just having a lovely time, even when they're on their own, you know, or you can get a couple kissing. Like, I was always trying to find couples kissing. Like, I just thought it was such a cool thing to take a picture of. Or sometimes I get these groups of lads that are all hugging each other, like 4 of them. Yeah, like you get so many of those little things as well. So ultimately, for like the promoter and like demonstrating the whole energy feedback loop moment, you want the whole room. But I always try
in that room.
Yeah,
you've got facets. You've got all these like separate lives in the room.
Worlds within this world, you know, and that's the great thing about having that big long lens, because you can find them.
So when you are going and kind of photographing events and stuff, what is the most important thing that you kind of want to capture within your photography? Like, is it the people? Is it the atmosphere? Like, what do you kind of go for?
Well, both the people and the atmosphere. I feel like without the people, there's no atmosphere. And it's the people that create the atmosphere. So it's the people that I want to like focus on, and like just capturing people just really in their elements. And it's so nice because you see people just like really just feeling the music, and it's just great to document. And you try and document it before they notice. I mean, a good like zoom lens helps, but if you don't have that, then I just walk past them quite quickly and just try and like I keep my camera like down low and I don't use the viewfinder and just try and snap it quickly, or I'll just be blatantly obvious if they're just so in the moment that I don't think they'll notice, because that is the case a lot of the time.
And, you know, with the kind of stuff that you take in terms of your pictures, like I've had a look and stuff, and it's very eclectic. Like I feel like you manage to capture a lot of different moments. How do you kind of look for those in a crowd? Because it's very busy. Like if you're doing a warehouse, it's massive. So
I feel like it's something that I just always have in the back of my mind, because I never used to really focus on the people. And when I was first starting, it was all about the DJs and all the people that I can post on Instagram that will get me attention, basically. But now that I've kind of developed my photography and I've kind of photographed all these really cool people, I've kind of turned it away from the artists and focused on the people that like make the raves. And it's always in the back of my head to just keep an eye out for people who are just like in their moment. And being in the moment is something that's really important. So like two people like embracing and just like capturing what people would consider
life
to be like special moment.
Yeah, because there's so many of the front of house shots. There's so many of the ones behind the DJ. Like, so many people do those shots. They're like the social media money shots. And I feel like when you're in an environment, I'm sure you feel the same. It's like you should try and get everything, you know.
Because probably like in 30 years' time, people want the ones like I was saying, like the subculture pictures that show the subculture at the time.
Yeah, I think that's why Arcadia like hiring me, because the boys tend to get the big money shots, but I'm like the one that just gets all the shots they never knew they needed.
I feel like you're going niche.
Yeah,
you kind
like,
of go for the like the really small kind of like
all the kind of atmospheric stuff that kind of shows off the ones they have online. Like I can do those, but they don't really interest me.
Yeah, you prefer the niche.
Yeah, like
kind of like close shots.
There was a bit where I was like underneath the dragonfly's head. This is a new stage, and it's mad. It looks like a dragonfly. Okay, so
it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I have seen your pictures.
Eyes,
and they're really
big
good.
freaking eyes, right? So the first time it got turned on, I was like underneath the head, and just seeing people's faces when they're looking up at it, they're like, what the fuck? Like they've never seen anything like it. So you get. I think I've got one where I've just got the antennae sticking out. You can't even see the head, and you can just see a line of people just like looking up at it, like it's like the War of the Worlds or something.
Wow.
They're like, what?
But then I find that more interesting than, just the picture of a DJ kind of arms up.
Yeah,
doing like a...
like, I like to call those the Avicii shots. Right?
So true.
Right, everyone needs an Avicii shot. There's nothing wrong with Avicii shots.
It's like, necessary.
Yeah, in
this modern world.
Shot. Right, and then you have to get the one of all the crowd. That's fine. Right.
But you would prefer to kind of go into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, like I'm on the floor. Like I used to have a chair that I used to shoot tall DJs with, because I ain't getting over 6'4" DJs with my hands. So I had this chair that I would store in the DJ booth and fabric, and then I used to bring it out into the crowd sometimes. Right? People were like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, I just stand on it."
Who's this person standing on a chair?
And so I bring it out into the middle of the dance floor. It's like 800 people on the dance floor, and then I'd get up on it. It's like 4 foot high. But everyone's like, "Are you scared?" I was like, "No, man. Like, literally, everyone helped me up. People stopped me from falling.
People probably pose for you a little bit there as well.
Yeah. They kept me all sturdy. No one was gonna like bash into me. So I managed to get these like really weird photos where I'm like in the middle of the dance floor, like I'm like raised up.
Do you have any advice for anybody who's watching this podcast who might be interested in kind of getting into rave and event photography and stuff?
Yeah, I would say talk to everyone, and like don't just like, there's a very fine line between talking to people because you want something and talking to people because you're genuinely interested in them. Go down the generally interested in them route, please. And just like creating these like friendships with other creatives. It's so nice to be around other photographers and creatives, and that is where like 80% of my work comes from, through them recommending me to other people. So these friendships are obviously great friendships, but they do bring some like really good opportunities as well. And then another thing which I'm still like kind of teaching myself is reach out to everyone. You probably won't hear from 50%, like 75% of people, because like people see your emails and they don't even open them. So it's just like catching their attention at the right time.
And then what were you saying before about like gear? Because I mean, I feel like there's a big thing in the photography world about kind of having that gear supremacy of like, oh, I've got this lens, so I'm like, it kind of levels you up to the next thing. Like, what do you think about that?
I've saved up for a good camera, but I've shot the majority of my work on one lens, which is a 24-70.
Oh my God,
and
same.
it is expensive.
Actually, same. That's the only lens I bought that's like expensive.
Yeah, it was the first one I bought, and I use it for everything. I mean, I'm trying to not use it for everything just to push myself a little bit, but I always go back to it. It's such a good lens, and it shoots like anything.
So for people like listening who maybe, are interested in this becoming a career for themselves as well, how has your experience been in the industry?
Up and down.
Yeah.
It's really sexist. And I only really realised this when because I never thought that I was treated differently. But then I was talking to a lot of male photographers, and they were like, we don't understand why you're hardly getting any work and you're not like picked for all these teams and stuff. And I was like, so I looked at all the people that hired me about 2.5 years ago, and I realized that 80% of the people who hired me were women. So
oh my God.
The stats don't lie. I mean, it caused me to have a complete breakdown. I was like, what do you mean? Right? But
that's terrible. Well, it's not terrifying because it's nice, but at the same time, that's weird.
Well, it's kind of subconscious and not. So a lot of the time, men won't hire women, either subconsciously or they do it purposely. You're going to have some misogynists. You're going to have some guys that just don't think about it, you know. But the problem is it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what happens is if you don't get booked enough, then other photographers can't meet you. Okay. And then the ones that are getting booked more are generally guys. So then they meet other guys and then they all pass work to each other. That's a big chunk of where your work comes from, is from other photographers and recommendations. It's all word of mouth. So if you're shut out of that because you're booked less, that's a problem. Makes it get worse. So there would be more female photographers out there if they were given more chances. And I was lucky because I worked for a major venue, so I was given chances, but I've been blacklisted, I've come across bare sexism, I've had I've been drugged at a festival, there's been some really horrifying stuff. Oh my God. Yeah. And I talked about it extensively I left the music industry for a while. I talked about it extensively in 2018. And then afterwards, I wasn't getting any work. Right? So, but I don't regret talking about it. And actually,
yeah, but that's the only way it's going to get better.
Yeah, because people are like, oh well, you shouldn't have spoken about your experiences. Because I happened to work with a DJ who I didn't sleep with, and then he basically blacklisted me, and his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend was a big major agent. Okay, so that it wouldn't have mattered so much if it was just him, but she then
also passed that on.
She then kind of stopped me from progressing along. And then also there's one thing which kind of gets me, which is a really good assumption but kind of gets me less work, is a lot of people think that I'm busy, too expensive, and won't do it, so they don't email me. And then when I'm trying to email them, it's getting blocked by
no really.
So I have a really amazing assumption, right, which is everyone's like, wow, because when people do get me, they're like, wow, we're so lucky to get you. And I'm like, look, I really need work right now. Right?
I don't know where this weird facades come about, where I'm super exclusive.
I know, it's really weird. It's kind of breaking my brain a bit, because I've had to really say to people, I'm like, if you all think this, I have no work.
Where did it, where does it come from?
Yeah, I was like, one of the guys I used to work with, one of the record labels, he was like, you're just too good. And I'm like, you can't say that. He goes, yeah, but everyone's cutting you. I was like, yeah, but have you off my rate? I was like...
So what are you supposed to do? Just become mediocre and everyone will be like, oh, we feel sorry for her.
I mean, so there was this, because of the fabric thing, it was amazing. And I'll never knock it, right? But I think it kind of made people think that I was unattainable, when that wasn't the case. Yeah.
When in actual fact, it's just circumstance and chance that you're in the right place at the right time.
And the model for music photography changed, and I don't know if it changed in rock music, but in 2018, it went teams. All right, and the reason why it went teams is because you need a video for social media.
Oh yeah, fair. And so, you want people who are directing that and looking at shots and
when
who's actually doing it.
When I wasn't part of a team, because I wasn't meeting photographers or whatever, then that was a real blow for anyone who was a music photographer, because if you were, especially in dance music, because if you weren't part of these cliquey little teams,
you weren't getting any work.
No, you weren't, and unless you were going for different clients. That's only within festivals and things like that. That's not, and venues. That's not actually doing anything other things. So now I work for brands. That's how I do it, and that is just so much better for me. I can do a little bit of experimenting. I also shoot the brand in the venue.
Or in the place that it is, because I'm guessing festivals will also do the same thing.
Yeah, they all have sponsors. That's the only way festivals survive, is sponsors. So you just go and work for the sponsors.
And it's a lot more of a nice time.
Yeah, you have a lot more of a nice time, and it's more professional. It's just, music photography is like anything in the music industry. It's crazy.
Thank you for coming along with us. Discover all things visual. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to learn more, you can find our social media at ServingKult on all platforms. There will also be extra interview content and behind the scenes and more. If you want to hear some of the music referenced in the podcast, you should check out the Serving Kult radio show. And tune in next month for our final episode, where we will be revisiting some of our favourite guests and seeing what they've been up to. See you soon.